Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us for Archaeologists in Quarantine, episode 4. Yes, which is, of course, Ellie, as you can see, and it's Women in Archaeology. Ellie is an undergraduate student at UCL, second year. How are you? How is it in quarantine? What's going on?
So great. I get up at like 11 a.m. and it's brilliant. Yeah, no, it's all right. I mean, I've got basically nothing to do other than computer programming, which is excellent because who wouldn't want to spend their quarantine computer programming? But yeah, no, it's great. How is it with you?
Well, it's my first week on furlough. I think it's my first. Everything's kind of mumbled now, so yeah, I think it's my first week in furlough, which is nice, but it's just strange because everyone I speak to has been at home for 6 weeks, and I'm like, no, I'm really happy. I'm really happy to be at home. I think the novelty might wear off soon, but I'm still enjoying it.
I was happy to be at home, and then it sort of got to like the third day, and I was like, no, this isn't working anymore. But yeah, I mean, yeah, people have it a lot worse, so it's okay. But yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so today's topic is, of course, women in archaeology. Your account attracted me like straight away, and I've seen it grow so much. I remember when it first started.
Sorry, yeah, it's absolutely mad. Like, I honestly thought it was going to be a platform where like maybe it would be sad, like 6 of my friends I would have like bullied to join, and we'd just have like a nice little social media platform where everyone can be a bit happy and like spread positive things. But now I've got like 760 people, and they're from like all around the world as well, so it's mad. Like, and people are so lovely on it. I think that's the thing that's the nicest, is like it's just so positive, and like it's like a really nice place to run. So yeah, thank you everyone.
I think it's truly brilliant to see the community grow and support each other. Yeah. I've noticed over the last few years, as social media is becoming more involved with public engagement in archaeology, we're starting to see groups like this.
Yeah.
The first group I ever discovered that kind of focused on women or even female scientists was Trailblazers, and they focus on geologists, paleontologists, and archaeologists. I think they're based in the UK. I could be wrong.
Yeah, so I actually found out about them after I started the account. It turns out that there are a bunch of female lecturers from UCL that have actually lectured me. Like I've spent 2 weeks camping with one of them or something, and it's mad that I didn't know about it. But yeah, no, they're really awesome.
Archaeology is such a small community. It's so close knit. You literally, I think it's like 2 degrees, no, maybe 1 degree of separation.
Yeah.
Like someone who knows one of us, like it's probably just 1 degree, not even 2 or 3.
I mean, like you find that when you go to uni, I think, because when I went, I was expecting like, because the IOA, the institute that I'm at, is kind of like, it was set up independently of UCL. So we sort of like stick to ourselves. So other people are like, oh, I've got my friends from English and from history, and we're like, yeah, we've got our friends from archaeology. Like we sort of stick together and stuff. So yeah, it's really close knit.
So what inspired you to create your Instagram account and I think Facebook, right? You have 2 platforms.
Yeah, the Facebook is not as developed, and I apologize for that. Mainly my phone plays up. So yeah, but I was super inspired like a couple of years ago when I first started as an undergraduate. We have a textbook which I'm sure like a lot of people know, called Renfrew and Barn, and it sort of went through the history of archaeology, and we all had to read it and do notes on it and stuff. And then it had like a 1-page spread on the role and contributions of women, and it was sort of like it has mentioned people like Mary Leakey and stuff in the main narrative, but then it sort of just had pictures of like Victorian women and like what they'd done, and it was sort of like an afterthought, like a side note. And considering like 80% of my class were female, like we just kept having the same sort of like white males. Like,
why does it focus on that?
Yeah, exactly. And I thought it was a bit odd how we've developed as a discipline to become, in my experience, a bit more like gender equal, and like we were still being taught that it was just male, if that makes sense. So yeah, I thought I'd create something like just a positive space for people, and especially just like to celebrate women and women in the field and women of color, because I personally think that they're super underrepresented. So yeah, it's just to celebrate that, really. I literally just rolled out of bed one morning, like it wasn't pre-planned. I just thought, like, got mad one day and thought, yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Well, the best things are never planned. Let's be real about that. Yeah, no, I think it's great what you're doing, and it's so true. For some people who do not know, the book that Ellie has mentioned is like a really fat textbook, and we kind of call it the Bible of Archaeology because it's got everything in there. It's methods, theories, and something. I can't remember the last. Methods, theories, and something. Anybody remember the title? Now's your time to tell me. No one on Instagram's telling me. But yeah, so it's the Bible of Archaeology, and you kind of use that throughout the whole 3 years. And a lot of people, even after university, they always refer back to it because it kind of summarizes all the methodology that we use, terminology, you name it. Generally, it's in there. So I'm actually surprised, and I can't even remember. Looking back now, I don't even remember reading anything about female archaeologists.
Like, it is a good textbook, but it's not, I feel like it's sort of, you've got the male narrative, and then it's sort of like someone's gone like, oh, women, and then like plops us in at the end, and it's kind of like, yeah. Even I've had some lectures where it's just been like, and in the 80s there was feminist archaeology, and then the male came back, and then it was like, okay, like, come on, where are the names?
I think honestly, in general, there might not be a lot of history on them, which is why they're somewhat overlooked in the textbooks, because they were overlooked at that time, right? If you look at someone like Tessa Wheeler, Hilda Petrie, they were known as the wives. They weren't known for their academic background, their own not theories, but their approach, their knowledge, their contributions. That's it. Their contributions to the field. Was rarely spoken about before. Really, I would say the early 2000s. In my personal opinion, I could be wrong, but I think really the first time museum, I think Natural History Museum, I might have seen something about Mary Leakey. Her name may have popped up at I think UCL, the Petrie Museum. I might have seen a few things that had a few ladies' names on there, including Kathleen Kenyon. But otherwise, we don't really hear about them. They're just known as the wives or something else.
I think one of the massive problems about it is, like, the information's out there, it's just our mentality towards it. So I feel like these people are recorded. Like, I could Google female archaeologists and it could come up, but it's not accessible. It's not like integrated into the narrative of archaeology. It's not like Mortimer Wheeler, but like that's a big name in archaeology, but you wouldn't think of Tessa Wheeler as someone that like brought anything to it, even though she did as much work as her husband in terms of like heritage and on Maiden Castle and stuff. So I think it's the way we approach it as well, and it's starting to change. Like, there are some amazing societies that are changing it, but it's still like almost an afterthought for a lot of people, I think, personally. So yeah,
I think it's interesting because I don't know, I feel like maybe in our society now, when you have to kind of you have to put your attention on it, otherwise you would notice that you're not being educated about female archaeologists. It's not even something you think about, right? You just look at a textbook, you read a name, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. It's what we've been taught to learn about, and like in the way we learn. And I think that's the same as well, personally, in my opinion. I think that's the same for people of color in archaeology. Like, it's not something that I don't think we focus on it as much as we should. And there are like some amazing accounts, like SBA, the Society of Black Archaeologists, and that like celebrates the ethical interpretation of like African diaspora material. And that's really, I think, like, stuff like that is so important now to focus on, because if we don't shift people's focus, especially with public archaeology, like I know you do a lot of outreach and stuff, but it's not as in the mainstream as it should be, I don't think, at the moment.
It's a big statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
On Instagram has commented. Okay, everyone's just saying hello. It's a really big statement. If anyone has anything they'd like to add, please mention it now in the Instagram feed or on YouTube, and we can have a look at that. Now, it's true, some of the things that you mentioned, and I think some people may say, well, They may even just say, why is it important?
Yeah.
Why should we focus our attention on this now? It's interesting what you said earlier about how if you were to Google female archaeologists, I wonder who actually wrote those and their intention for writing it. Is it for further education? Again, I mentioned trailblazers, so they're the main group that I can think of that's really pushed focusing on female characters of history. You know, people who were there and how they developed certain theories. Like, for example, we would never hear about the Wheeler-Kenyon method, would we? And that was significant at the time because it advanced archaeological method. Okay, yes, it was superseded, but the point is they were influenced by Pitt Rivers, and they tried to find a different way to develop, you know, the archaeological discipline. When we think of archaeology, we think of, Rivers, we think of Petrie and Wheeler, but we think of Mortimer Wheeler. These are the three main, I would say personally, that I think of when I think of archaeological theory. But if they're all married to women who are just as influential of that time, unfortunately, due to geopolitics, I think is the technical term, I'm not sure, that is probably what's led to them sort of being on the sidelines.
I think that's mad, because I feel like for a lot of archaeological history and a lot of the narrative in archaeology, we see it come from, or we have seen it come from in the past, certainly in like before the 80s, sort of just like colonial perspectives, and that misses out like 80% of the world, which is absolutely mad, because how can you tell anything about archaeology when you're not focusing on like, you're narrowing your view down so much to what you can actually learn about by only focusing on like one gender. So I think it's mad that anyone would think that that's
the thing is, I think it's not intentional. I think it's subconsciously people are doing it. It's not intentional. It's the idea of the use of words he, she, it. When you describe certain things in the English language, you might say he or him, right? More so than if you were to compare it to French and Russian or other languages that use, they have like feminine and masculine words for the same thing, right? They have a feminine and masculine version. I've forgotten the technical term. I don't do languages, guys. But what I mean is in the English language, we don't associate a gender with something. But I've noticed when we start to talk about certain things, we may refer to it as him.
Yeah.
Actually, there's no gender, it's just the use of the language. So if we look at things like this, then maybe subconsciously this travels on. But then also, do we have to look at the contributions? I mean, maybe these guys are the ones who did do more, or they had to take credit because their wives couldn't take the names because the project would not have been as serious, they wouldn't have got the funding.
Completely, definitely, like, but I think that's because they were able to do more because they could. So it was the ability. And like, I think that now as we change as a society, as we realize that things perhaps maybe weren't that ethical back then, and we're trying to move towards that, I think we need to shift our focus from like acknowledging and learning about, yes, how important Wheeler was and Child and everyone like that, but at the same time, what's happening now that's significant? Why is it different? Like, why is it better? And I think that's where pages like Women in Archaeology come in, because what I'm hoping is that if it's something that is sort of present on people's feeds, they can start associating archaeology with contributions of women, and hopefully it will become a narrative that's more sort of intertwined rather than just like
normal as well. It's normal.
Just normal. Yeah, basically.
It's not a feminist movement. It's just normal. It's just information, you know? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
There's also, I noticed actually when I was tagging you earlier and I was putting, you know, Women in Archaeology on Facebook, I noticed that there was a podcast, or was it in Twitter? I don't know, but the point is there's definitely a lot of organizations out there who are trying to do something. And it's interesting. I think
I'm not associated with that podcast. Like, I had no idea it existed.
Well, this is what I mean. This is interesting though. I think I might try and reach out to all of them and let's see what we could do. I'm not sure what the motive could be, but we could try maybe to reach out and do a group chat at some point.
It would be amazing to do something like a collaboration.
Well, it's like, you know, so for example, I think it was episode 1, I was speaking to Maria, who's a Near Eastern archaeologist. and she mentioned Kathleen Kenyon.
Yeah.
And I had to think really hard who that was. It wasn't a name that straight away I was like, oh yes, Jericho. I had to really think that. I was like, yeah, Jericho. Now I don't know, maybe Near Eastern archaeologists, for them she's a more pinnacle character and they all know who it is. But me personally, I never specialized in this region. So when she said that name, I was like, I had to honestly really think, and then I remembered. But then I did some Googling about her, and she's amazing. She's Dame Kathleen Kenyon. She was the first female president of the Oxford Archaeological Society.
Yeah.
Of course, she's created the Wheeler-Kenyon archaeological method that I mentioned earlier. And she was a founding member of the Institute of Archaeology.
I think we have a photo, actually.
Yeah, probably.
In the staff room, we have a photo of her in a plaque.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just amazing sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is incredible. And I think what's so cool is that this happens all over the world all the time. So I've had people on my page from Namibia, Tanzania. I've had them from Guatemala, Hawaii, China. It's from all over the world that women are doing just incredible work. And I don't know, I personally just want it to be talked about more, because I think that would just be great. I mean,
Sorry, I told you never to look at me if I'm looking away. Please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Don't distract, because you were saying something really good there.
I think because personally, because archaeology was founded in a very colonial setting, it was literally engineered by people, anthropology and archaeology were engineered by colonizing states in order to understand the people that they were colonizing, if that makes sense. So I think there's still a lot of work to go with recognizing people that aren't Western, in places that Guatemala and stuff, and Tanzania and Namibia, because they're doing incredible work where they are, but I don't feel like it's as part of the narrative as it should be as well.
Well, it's as I've just got a comment here from the Silken Tribesman. Hello again, great, thank you for joining us. And again, he says the same points as we were saying earlier. He said, isn't it the result of the funding streams for archaeology? Aren't they equally as politicized and biased? Isn't all history politicized? Yes, I mean, yeah, you are correct. It's still good. Yes, I have to agree with it. It's down to that, and then as you were saying as well.
Yeah, it's so much about opportunity. It's so much, because I think there are so many undercurrents of prejudice and bias that we don't see in society that create and stop people from having opportunities. And it's such a it is everything is politicized, but especially opportunity, I think, which is why we don't see as many women or as many people of color. That's my opinion, I think.
It depends, I think, as well, where what we're talking about. If we're talking about from a Western society, yes, of course, then maybe not as people from color. But it also depends if you look at the percentage, how high is the percentage of people who, of ethnic minorities. But then the problem is as well is how do you really class an ethnic minority? It's something that I personally find, being somebody who is, I find it interesting how they categorize. I think a couple of years ago, 7% was a part of the cultural heritage sector. 7%. But this is the UK we're talking about.
Wow, yeah.
That's not a lot. And the cultural heritage sector is museums, some sort of conservation works, national houses, and sort of government funded projects and companies. And then of course I do commercial archaeology, very low percentage. So if we look at that as a statistic, then maybe, we are going to see less people who may have been of color or an ethnic minority. But it's a very strange one, and I think it's very grey area.
Yeah, it's such a personal thing as well. It's hard to actually comment on. But
that's, I think, because of how society is made it like that. Society is divided for one reason or another. Apologies, that's my phone. Society has divided, and Silicon the Silcon tribesman has just said, and if Indigenous and Native communities aren't allowed to conduct their own archaeology, isn't this potentially dangerous and the colonization of history? You're so good today. You're on fire, Silcon tribesman. You're on fire. And by the way, the comment that you just mentioned, we will be discussing further in a group call next Saturday, so the 9th of May, and it will be focusing on colonization, how it's impacted history, archaeology, current methods, and we're going to have people who are dealing with that currently at the moment in the States. So they'll be able to give their personal view.
Far more informed than...
But we can still give our opinion on it. I mean, again, I agreed. And Ellie, what you wanted to do this summer, I think it ties in very well with this question.
Yeah, definitely. So I was actually, because I'm doing a course for the year abroad. And the thing that I find really interesting in archaeology is how colonial mindsets have warped what we know about cultures, and in particular Indigenous cultures. And I'm really, like, my dissertation is themed around critiquing Western methodologies like in the past and their interactions with other cultures. And this summer I was actually supposed to be volunteering on a project that's led by the South Sea Islander community, and it's to do with their heritage and their heritage surrounding slavery in Queensland, and what their experiences were and what their histories are of it, what their, you know, how it's affected them as a culture. And I was going to go on that, but obviously Rona's hit us and I can't get anywhere. But yeah, so it's such a massive thing. I think it needs to be looked at a lot more than it is, in my opinion. But yeah, no, you're definitely right. Like, everything's politicized, and I think archaeology is such a good way of breaking down that politicization of things, if that makes sense. Because archaeology, like, can't lie. You can't lie with archaeology. Like, the stuff is in the ground, it is what it is. People can interpret it differently, and they can sort of like warp it to whatever political agenda they have. But at the end of the day, if you try and do it as ethically as possible, it's possible to, or I think it's possible to raise narratives that haven't been raised before. So whereas like archaeology is really politicized and colonial, I also think it can not be. It has a lot of potential to not be.
Again, like, it's true what you've just said. I personally agree with everything you just said, and it's a shame because quarantine has affected your year of being able to do that research. And if memory serves, I think they've got a minimum, originally a 6-month travel ban, right, to enter Australia.
6 months. It's so sad.
But potentially maybe even longer now, I've heard.
Yeah, probably will be.
So Maria mentioned something. I think this is to do with Kathleen Kenyon, I think. So Maria added, and she created a very, very persistent theory about the plastered skulls, that they were part of an ancestor cult, a theory people still use today, even though it has been disputed many times over. So basically her theory, so Kathleen Kenyon's Jericho skulls, I don't know if you've seen some of those images. Spectacular.
Yeah, I've seen like a little bit of them.
Yeah, so from the sounds of it, her theories are still used. So maybe that means at least I'm assuming that means her name is mentioned. Normally it is when you associate a theory, you'd say Kenyon's theory. Yeah. So that's promising. But then it just depends on the area. It depends. It really is down to, I think, the research. Most of the research that we see females in is generally Egypt, isn't it? Like Egypt, and of course the Near East. Anything in the Near East, that region is really where I personally have seen any female archaeologists mentioned, which is interesting, because that means in the early 1900s they were going over there to do all their expeditions.
It was just rich, bored people, wasn't it? When they just got bored, they were like, got nothing else to do, I'm just going to plow up a stone circle.
If you look at the history of archaeology, before archaeologists you have antiquarians. Before antiquarians you have just looters, don't you, really? Antiquarians start a kind of process, but they're generally just taking they're young kids who are from dukes and from affluent backgrounds, and they're going abroad and they're taking artifacts that they like. You know, they're buying it, then they bring it back, they put it in the museums, and then from that stage we kind of get into the archaeologists, when there starts to be a rhythm. You know, there's a method, but I'm not sure when that line really happened, you know, when it was apparent. I can tell you in recent years, but I'm not sure that far back. I can't remember.
It must have come, well, from what I learned, I think it came with new archaeology, but I'm not entirely sure. And that's when they started, like, rather than just taking people's words for it, they actually started investigating. But then again, I could be completely wrong, because
it depends. Even though back then expeditions, they would say Howard Carter found this.
Oh yeah.
But that was his expedition. Did he find it? I don't know. I don't want to put I don't put any slander against him, but what I mean is, there's such a large group of people that are contributing to a project, and you only ever hear one person's name. They're the main person who finds the funding for it. Okay, another one. The Silken Tribesman has asked, what do you think about the way archaeological evidence is presented as political? Most ends up in the libraries of white middle-class males, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, personally, sorry, not to get too political, personally, I agree with that. So there's the whole like repatriation, that's the debate, which will probably come in your colonial.
Yeah, I think we'll have to really focus on that with the laws and stuff, but we can still talk about that.
So I personally, like, I think it's really good to share your knowledge and share your knowledge of culture and stuff, but I don't really see what the point in these big museums hoarding like skeletal remains and cultural materials are. Like, I personally don't think the economic argument is a good basis for ownership, and I think it should go to people that value it, you know, not just for money and for stuff like that. So like I agree with you. And I think we should change that, definitely.
It's interesting, yeah, because you talk about politics and then museums. I mean, the one I can think of right now, there's two. There was two in the last 6 months that I have seen circulating, protests, if you like, repatriation schemes, and really wanting, actually no, three, but there's two I definitely know of. So you have the statue, the Mau statue, you know, the Easter Island.
Yeah, Rapa Nui statue, yeah.
That statue, and then you have some artifacts in the Greek galleries in the British Museum.
Oh, the Parthenon marbles.
Yes, the Parthenon marbles. Now, both of them have had a lot of public demonstrations, especially the Greek one. I don't know if you've seen the images. It's very interesting because the whole idea of, I can give you this on loan for 100 years. Yeah. But it's a loan. You know, it's the use of the terminology and the political slang on it, the legal terms. It's very interesting. I think the main thing, and I understand this, is if they don't want to give it an original back because of the safety, the well-being of that artifact, if they can prove that honestly they think that the British Museum, for example, can look after the artifact more than a national museum of that country, and actually both museums agree with this, that's a different story. But what's happening is you have national museums from other countries asking, please, can I have this back, please? You know, and they're begging for it, because let's face it, how were these artifacts obtained?
They were stolen. They weren't I mean, well, that's quite a big word to use, but yeah, like, if I don't understand how they're still in that mindset. Like, I'm pretty sure, from what I understand, and this could be wrong, but from what I understand of the Parthenon marbles, they were taken from Greece in order to be kept safe. And they're sort of like, the British Museum won't produce any documentation to say that they can legally own them, but they're sort of just like, oh no, we've got it out the back, like, we definitely can own this, but it's fine, it's fine.
Maybe it's the idea of protecting it, and what is the function of a museum?
Yeah. But then it's different in different cultures, isn't it? Because, for example, I was learning about some types of, I think it's Tanzanian structures, where they are built in order to fall down. Like, they're built in order to collapse. But the UNESCO World Heritage went over there and thought, oh, look at these incredible structures, we'll stick iron poles in them. So, this might be, sorry, I think it actually might be Rwanda. and that it was basically because of our idea of what preservation was warped what actually it was meant to be to that culture. So I also think there's, I don't know, yeah, I think we have a bit of an enlightenment complex in the West, like we know best, whereas like I love archaeological material, I want it to be like restored and cared for, but at the same time, like if someone else doesn't think that, why do we have the moral opinion that says that it should be?
This is something that's been going on for hundreds of years, and I personally, I don't know how I feel, because there are, like, when you go to a museum, the British Museum, I think it is amazing. When you look at it, when you walk around, it's free. Okay, this is the key thing, it's free to go inside. How many other places in the world do you have to pay for to enter it? The only issue I have is that when countries are asking for their artifact back, they're asking for it back. I remember, and Silken Tribesman, this is something you asked a question of. How often is archaeological evidence shared back to the community? Any examples? Now, I remember.
Good question.
I remember, I don't know exact facts, but I remember there was something in Wales. There was a museum that had something from an Aboriginal artifact that was in Wales. I think it might have been, was it some sort of clothing? And they decided to send it back to the community in Australia. And what they did is they made a replica, and the replica is on display.
Yeah.
A great example of how, you know, that in itself, yes, you can have a replica. It's that simple. And now we have digitalization, don't we? You can digitize like this cup, digitize it online. But I think it's the Pergamon Museum, or definitely it's a museum in Berlin. They won't let anyone access my 3D modeling of this cup because they made it.
Really?
Nefertiti. I don't know if it's changed now, but I remember 6 years ago, there was an issue when we were trying to get access to it, and you have to ask for special permission and stuff. Whereas at least in the British Museum, it's online. If you want to have a look at any photos, most of their artifacts are available on the online catalogue. Something Maria mentioned about the marbles. She said that the marbles were never on loan, never on loan. They were kind of just taken, and Greece have actually asked for them back for the last 100 years.
100 years?
100 years, that's
100 years they've been asking.
Let's think about this. Yeah, that's a long time.
That's absolutely mad. What are we doing? Just give it back. Just make a replica and give it back. Like,
yeah.
What's the issue?
Oh, okay. Past preservers. I did not know this. Past preservers, thank you for the comment, Nigel. The British Museum has part of the Sphinx's beard.
No
outrageous.
way.
Yes, that is outrageous. I did not know that.
I didn't know that at all. That's mad.
Ah, really? Ah, thank you, Silken Tribesman. Apparently, it was the National Museum of Scotland, Edinburgh, that handed back Aboriginal materials. Interestingly, there is a conflict with Welsh history in English museums too. Yeah, to be honest, I was going by memory for something I watched a long time ago on TV. I was a lot younger. Oh, and Maria now has added about the marbles. The EU have been involved since 2013. Regarding the marble creation.
Literally, what are we doing?
Oh, then
all of Europe saying give it back.
Yeah. Well, come on. We don't listen to Europe. Come on. We don't
Yeah,
need to get into
we're
getting way too political now. Catholic era has now come to join. He heard Sphinx. He's like, I see him. No, you're not going to catch him on camera now. But interesting. Thank you, Nigel, again from Past Preservers. He said that the beard from the Sphinx, it wasn't even on display until Egypt asked for it back.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, and another interesting point, the marbles could be part of the Brexit deal. Yeah, good argument, Chip. We'll trade with you. We'll have a better trade agreement, maybe.
Oh God, yeah.
It's interesting how politics shapes so much, and we don't even put attention on it.
I think that is what I've been trying to, well, not change with women in archaeology, because like it's a tiny Instagram page, like it's not really influencing. I'm not really influencing a lot, but like if we just change what we focus on, then I just think everything else will follow. Which is, yeah, like
I'm sorry. Actually, I misunderstood past preserver's comment. Sorry, Nigel. It's actually fact. I thought you were making a jokes, but you weren't joking, Nigel. Okay, so Maria just added no. Greece are trying to get the marbles back via Brexit deals. They are trying.
Oh, actually.
Yeah, but UK are not interested. So okay, that's terrible. Isn't it?
That's so bad.
So now this is steering towards repatriation now.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. I know it's no joke, but it's one of those terrible realizations you don't even realize is going on.
I think I laugh because it's outrageous. Like it's just so outrageous.
I agree.
I can't actually believe in this day and age that it's still happening. Like obviously it is still happening. It happens all over the world to everyone, but it's kind of laughable. Like what's going on?
It's crazy. I can't believe it is going on. That's what I mean. That's why we laugh, because we can't believe it. Why are we not even being told about this? You know, like why do we not hear about this sort of stuff on the news? Or maybe there is, I've just not read it. What is this? Okay, another one. The Silken Tribesmen. Which archaeological teams are trying to build collections in underrepresented communities?
What do you mean? But as in like what teams?
I think archaeological teams in the sense of maybe, to us, I think it's university students, university-led research projects that are trying to enable local communities, help them with their preservation, I would say. For example, with your project, how did you come about that?
I just, well, to be honest, I just emailed around. Like I'm because I'm interested in that anyway. I seem to be quite lucky with I can just sort of find projects that are along the lines of what I want to do. But in terms of teams that are helping, sorry, did they say helping to preserve?
Well, helping to build collections in underrepresented communities. So yes, preserve.
Well, the best one that I know of currently, and that's what I mentioned before, is the SBA, the Society of Black Archaeologists. So they're looking at, as I said before, African diaspora material, because often it's sort of like a studied thing. It's not integrating the opinions of people that are affected by their heritage and the material. So they're changing the way that that's looked at and the way that that's developed, from what I understand of it. I can't speak for them, but yeah. Sorry?
You could try to contact them.
I think they're in America, so they might be asleep.
No, I mean, I'm thinking for maybe we can try to contact them for another time for.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, that would be amazing actually, because their platform is just so incredible. I think that would be a really awesome thing to do.
Well, if we swing back to women in archaeology.
Oh yes, sorry.
I was thinking about Gertrude Thompson. She's another sort of famous character that I can think of, because she was one of these suffragettes.
Oh, okay.
She was a suffragette. She's so cool. She's a suffragette. She studied Egyptology with Margaret Murray. Yeah. She then had this sort of scandal with Flinders Petrie and Raymond Dart over the way that she was approaching her excavations, because she tried to change the methodology a little bit to make it more scientific. And it led to this really interesting relationship between them in the academic sphere. And I love her character. I think it's brilliant. You know, she's one of those ones like, I think we should do it like this.
You had to be like that though back then, I reckon. You had to just be like, nah, I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah, do it my way. But she's known for also, so she conscientiously, she chose women on her projects while she was going out into the field, and she worked with Dorothea Bate, Freya Stark. I always remember Freya Stark's name, I don't know why, and Eleanor Gardner, and apparently she even is associated with Mary Leakey. Like I think she taught her or something in her younger years. So she's influenced a lot of people, you know, a lot of female heads, if you like, within the archaeological department. It's really interesting when you start looking deeper into the characters.
Yeah, I think that's true of a lot of like women in archaeology, is that they're actually like, they've so deeply gone in all the undercurrents of what we are today. They just sort of need like, I think they just need picking out and just, you know, like celebrating really.
Well, it's like, as I said, Margaret Murray. Why I know Margaret Murray, and I don't know how, I don't know what I was reading, but she was the lecturer of Egyptology at UCL.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
The late 1800s, like very, very late 1800s. And she taught all the courses that Petrie didn't want to teach. Sorry, Flinders. Yeah, Flinders Petrie. Like what he didn't want to teach, like in terms of Egyptology, she would do it. She's just awesome. And like her and Hilda Petrie worked together, and they're the ones who did SETI 1. They're the ones who uncovered the underground hall.
Really?
With the name of Sethos 1.
I never knew that.
I don't pronounce that. Is that correct? Yeah, sorry, because I get, when it comes to pronouncing like names in the like Egyptology, I always feel like I'm doing it wrong. But she was a part of that.
That's
awesome.
really cool.
Yeah, she's really awesome. There's so many people. Once you start like researching, it's amazing what you find, isn't it?
Right, it's like the information's there. You just got to go get it.
Yeah, exactly. And talking of just going and getting it, we've been chatting for 45 minutes.
Good God, I did not realise, sorry.
So I'm thinking we should save people who have been listening to us.
Yes.
But if there's any more questions, please drop a message now. And we've appreciated all your comments so far. It's really, I'm going to check YouTube quickly. It's, oh, okay, nope, there is, my bad, there is something from YouTube. Let's just mention this if that's okay. So Angelina is from episode 3. Hello, Angelina. She goes, yeah, a nice comment here. That's so sad because a lot of people don't know that Agatha Christie sponsored a whole excavation in the Near East. It was Nimrod.
Do you know what? I feel like I might have known that in the back of my mind, but that definitely was not surface material. Like, that's really cool.
Another interesting comment, actually, from Hussam Botras. Thank you for this. He said, is there any difference gender-wise in finding artifacts or interpreting them? I don't think it's gender. I think it's your social background, your social, political. So when I say social, I mean like where you're born, what university do you go to, who do you surround yourself with? That's how your interpretation, in my opinion, is kind of developed, where you get your theories, your methodology, and you hone in on other people's thinking, I would say, because it's all about interpretation, archaeology.
Yeah. I think that gender does play a role, but only because it's so like fundamental to how I experience my world. So I experience it through the lens of how other people experience my gender, if that makes sense. So you might have, I interpret archaeological material in a way that's like conduit to how I've experienced my world, which is the same thing that you're saying really with social backgrounds and interpretation. So I think it does have a part of a role to play, but it's not like I think a man and a woman will come to two different conclusions. But I think it does make you think a bit differently, I think, about materials and what I think, yeah, and roles.
Yeah, I've never thought about it before. I'm trying to think of situations, but I can't think of anything. I think for what I personally deal with every day and the projects I've been on, I think it's just really down to we listen to whoever's experience in this area, and we learn how to interpret it using their skills and our skills that we learn along the way. And the more you do, archaeologically speaking, the better your interpretation becomes, and the more you understand a deposit.
I'm sure like I'll probably get to a stage where I'm like you, but because I've only been doing it for like 2 years at the moment, like my opinions are like baby opinions at the moment. But like, yeah, I think, yeah, definitely it's your social background and context and who you listen to. Because I'm really lucky with UCL, like they're quite liberal, I think, and they're quite forward thinking in terms of things like that. So that's influenced my experience of archaeology a lot. Yeah.
I think, you know, when you just said liberal, it just made, I don't know why this word just stuck. I wonder, I don't think that it matters, for example, if you have a male or a female lecturer. I don't know why, but I don't think it matters when it comes to archaeology anyway, because they're going by a syllabus or their personal experiences, and they're honing in on that, right? And
Yeah,
if
yeah.
anything, I mean, I've been quite fortunate. All the lecturers I've had have always trying to support you and somebody's ideas, answer some questions, whatever, and they try to give them the best scope that they can. And honestly, I can't personally remember thinking about women in archaeology as a subject. I never put attention on it, but that's just me personally. There may be people who I studied with who can remember exact examples of maybe when we were or were not taught. I personally do not. So it's interesting. I'm going to check if there's any more comments. Okay, Angelina. What is Ellie's favourite female figure in history?
Oh no, I don't know how to choose. That's oh no, I'm gonna have to go. Oh no, how can I choose? Everyone's so great. Oh no. Oh, I think that it's really recent, and it's probably not the history that you were thinking of. But one of my favorite ever females to ever live is Maya Angelou, just because I think she was an incredible person, and I just love the bones of her. Like, I think her poetry was utterly inspiring. Like, I think she was an inspiring person. She was like, didn't have a very great start. Like, she had a lot of social stuff against her. And the thing is, I'm sure there's been women like that all throughout history that I don't know about, and I probably should like go out and learn about them. But yeah, I mean, that's really bad because that's really recent, and I'm an archaeologist, so I probably should know other people that are older. But
it's someone who resonates with you, and that's why people have something that's favorite. So it's not a problem. It's not an issue. But I think on that, maybe I think we should really. I think it's been amazing speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Really opened up a lot of topics that I honestly did not even think we would be touching upon. I think the questions led us there. It became somewhat provocative in what we were saying. But of course, fundamentally, I love the British Museum. I love other museums, of course. I think it's great, especially if they're free to enter. I love free museums.
Oh, definitely.
That's what I want to say. Anything that's free, I love. I do have issues with the fact that there is so much that's not on display, but that's because they don't have the space. And yes, I understand that they're trying to, all museums now, they have archive centres that try to preserve an area. I get that. I find it sad though when you have local museums, national museums from other countries who want to show their own history and they can't. But I also get that from another side, they may not have the facilities to do it. I get that. But then it depends the approach people take. You know, not too judgmental, but to be understanding of another museum situation, and maybe they can help them to display the artifacts instead of just saying no, or it's not safe, or you can have it on loan. There must be something, another way.
A halfway point that people can.
There must be, yeah. But then I guess maybe for the British Museum, by giving it on loan is the halfway mark. I'm not sure.
Could be.
Who knows? I mean, it's a different sphere. It's not something I am personally, I don't work in that area. I don't know the laws around it. Of course, we are both familiar with repatriation schemes and things like that. So it's just our opinions that we've been discussing today. So yeah, everybody, it's our opinions. If you'd like to contact Ellie on Instagram, the links will be in the description box, but it's women_in_archaeology. Ellie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And if there are any questions that come in after, we could always do a Q&A. So if you see something, you have a question, please write in the comments, share the video, let's get a discussion starting, and maybe we could actually get a group of influencers within this sphere who can maybe give a bigger insight from their point of views, from depending what part of the world they're in. It'd be good to maybe get some American archaeologists in on this as well, because I think for them it's they are really honing in on this a lot more. We see online anyway. My Instagram has actually cut off, but that's okay. So YouTube viewers, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll see you next week on Wednesday, and until then, adios.
Bye.